A student's body is found displayed on the university president's lawn. She's been bound, tortured, and strangled with the antenna of her own car. To solve a crime this calculated, the FBI relies on a highly classified asset, a covert house of teenage psychological prodigies. These kids read microexpressions, spot imperceptible lies, and build complex behavioral profiles from a handful of scattered clues. Two of these prodigies sit at the center of the program. Cassie is an empathetic profiler who still bears the trauma of her mother's unsolved murder. Dean is the brooding, emotionally closed-off son of a notorious incarcerated serial killer. By FBI mandate, the teens are strictly confined to working old, cold cases. But the details of the campus murder match a highly recognizable pattern. The killer is perfectly mimicking the methods of Dean's father. The teens are suddenly pulled into an active, escalating hunt. The killer isn't choosing random victims. He is actively taunting the young profilers, using the darkest parts of their own family histories against them. The FBI dispatches a hardened veteran named Agent Sterling to seize control of the investigation. She brings order, absolute authority, and a deeply complicated personal history with Dean's father. Agent Sterling operates on a strict ideology. Emotional attachment is a liability. She believes the only way to catch a monster is by maintaining total distance and relying on cold, hard logic. This philosophy directly collides with Cassie's methodology. Cassie cannot turn off her intense emotional connection to the victims. To understand the killer, she mentally steps into their shoes, feeling their desires and fears as if they were her own. Because the adult agents refuse to emotionally engage with the horror of the crime scene, they look right past the behavioral nuances left behind. They catalog the physical evidence, but they entirely miss the psychological subtext. Sterling's rigid detachment creates a blind spot in the investigation. Realizing the FBI is walking into a trap, Cassie and the other teens decide to break the rules and rogue profile the killer themselves. Working in secret, the teens launch a psychological autopsy of the murder, dissecting the forensic data to understand exactly what Agent Sterling missed. This diagram illustrates two opposing concepts in criminal psychology. On the left, organized killers meticulously plan their abductions and leave little physical evidence. On the right, disorganized killers act impulsively, leaving messy, chaotic crime scenes behind. As we map the specific clues of the campus murder onto this diagram, they contradict each other. The initial abduction was flawlessly planned, fitting the organized profile. But strangling the victim with a car antenna and dumping her on a public lawn points to severe impulsivity. An organized offender's need for control is absolute. They don't suddenly abandon a high-stakes plan for a messy public murder. That shift reflects an entirely different set of psychological needs. These two signatures suggest a partnership, a dominant alpha orchestrating the game, and a submissive apprentice executing the violence. The FBI has no idea there is a dual killer dynamic at play. Because they are only looking for one suspect, their entire tactical approach is flawed, leaving them perfectly positioned for the mastermind's next move. The adult agents soon apprehend a suspect named Christopher Sims waiting outside a coffee shop. Because they find kidnapping supplies in his truck, the FBI declares the case closed. By mentally inhabiting the suspects, Cassie identifies a mismatch in the timeline. Sims fits the physical evidence in the truck, but he lacks the sophisticated ego required to plan the elaborate taunts sent to the FBI. Sims is the submissive apprentice. He follows orders, but he lacks the confidence and foresight required to orchestrate the broader psychological game they are playing with the investigators. The true mastermind, the alpha who designed the perfectly organized abduction, is still out there, completely free. and he is actively targeting the people investigating him. The FBI has secured the apprentice, but the strategist remains in the field. By stopping at the first arrest, the agency has effectively ignored the source of the violence, leaving every investigator vulnerable to a final trap. The Alpha lures Agent Sterling and Cassie into an isolated location. The heavy steel door slammed shut, plunging the veteran agent and the teenage profiler into a hostage situation, with no backup. Faced with pure madness, Agent Sterling attempts to rely on her rigid logic, but her authoritative commands fall flat against an irrational killer. Cassie takes the opposite approach. She uses her emotional intelligence to psychoanalyze their captor in real time, figuring out exactly what he wants to hear. Cassie leverages her psychological insight to keep the killer talking. She feeds his ego and plays on his insecurities, stalling him just long enough for the rest of the FBI to track a GPS monitor on her ankle and breach the room. In the aftermath, the secretive Naturals program is exposed to higher government officials, resulting in strict new oversight regulations. Agent Sterling, having nearly lost her life, finally acknowledges the limits of her methodology. The survival of both agents hinged on Cassie predicting the killer's reactions through the emotional connection Sterling warned against. Empathy provided the time the team needed to bridge the gap between a theoretical profile and a successful rescue.